We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Zayin Amud Beis Meseches Nazir. This is Nazir Daf 37b. The Gemara says, really, where does Rabbi Akiva learn this idea of Tam Ke'ikr, Yalef Migiulei Ovdei Kochavim? He learns it from the fact that you have to kasher the vessels of the non-Jews. The Yomar Achmana, because the Torah says, Kol Davar Asher Yavo Ba'esh. It says anything that came in the fire, it was used by idol worshippers, so in order to kasher it, you have to use fire. L'meimra da'asire Giulei Ovdei Kochavim means to say that if you have a situation of absorption of non-kosher in vessels, of the vessels of non-Jews, so that absorption is going to be prohibited. Lav Taima Bial Mahuvi Aser, isn't that just a situation of tam? It's just the taste, and you see that it's aser, so you see from there, tam ke'ikr. Hachanami lo shna, so to over here in general, that's going to be the source for tam ke'ikr. And the Gemara says, Ula Rabbanan Nami, but according to the Rabbanan also, Tepik Luhum Migiyulei Ovdei Kochavim, why don't they learn out Tam Ke'ikr from Giyulei Ovdei Kochavim, from the same source, the absorption of the non-kosher in the Kalim of the Ovdei Kochavim? Amar Lei says to him, Hasam Chidishu, over there again, it's a novel idea, Giyulei Ovdei Kochavim. Da B'chol Torah Kula, because everywhere else in the Torah, what do we find? No Sein Tam Lifgam Mutter. If you have a taste that is given over, that's absorbed, but it's Lifgam, it's a tainted taste. It doesn't actually add any benefit, so it's usually mutter. Vegabe Giulei Ovdei Kochavim aser, but by Giulei Ovdei Kochavim, when it comes to kashering the vessels of the non-Jews, it's prohibited. That's a chiddush. You can't learn out to other areas. Well, the Rabbi Akiva Nami HaChidushu, according to Rabbi Akiva also, can't we ask the same question? Isn't it a chiddush? Isn't it a novel teaching? Amar Rav Huna bar Chiya says, Lo Asr Torah, Ela L'Kedeira Bas Yuma Delav No Sintam Lefgamhu. When the Torah talks about this prohibition of the taste that's absorbed in the Kedeira, in the pot, in the vessels, we're talking about where it's just been absorbed in the last day, within the last day. That's not No Sintam Lefgam. That's actually a taste that does add, that does enhance, and therefore it is not talking about no sin tam lefgam. It is not a chiddush. It is a regular standard case, and we can learn out from there this concept of tam ke'ikr. But the Rabbanan respond to that, Kedera bas yumanami, even when you're talking about a Kedera that has absorbed the taste just within the day, Yefshar delo pagma porsa, there must be a little bit that the taste is tainted. It's not completely enhancing whatever goes in the pot, and therefore, again, according to the Rabbanan, it is in fact a chiddush. And the Gemara continues, Amarle Ravacha Breder Ravavia Ravashi. Ravacha Breder Ravavia says to Ravashi, Midrabanan Nishmal Rabbi Akiva. From the sheet of the Rabbanan, we can understand something about the sheet, about the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Lav Amri Rabbanan Hai Mishras Litin Tam Ke'ikr. Didn't the Rabbanan say that the word Mishras in the pasuk teaches the concept of Tam Ke'ikr? Umikan Atodon L'chol Isurin Shabbatorah. And it's from there we learn all Isurin, by all prohibitions, we have this principle of Tam Ke'ikr. But if that's the case with the Rabbanan, Rabbi Akiva Nami, for Rabbi Akiva also, as we said, he uses the word mishras to teach the concept of heter mitzaref le'isr, that permitted can join together with the prohibited in terms of the shear to create the shear for the prohibition. So lema mikan atadon l'chol isurin shabbat Torah. Why not say that from here we learn the concept of heter mitzaref le'isr for all isurin shabbat Torah? Why do we say that when it comes to heter mitzaref le'isr it's only by the halacha of Nazir and it doesn't apply to other isurin, when by tam ke'ikr we do derive from Nazir to other Isurim? So Amar Lei, so he said to him, Mishum dehavin Nazir v'chatos beis ksuven haboin ke'echad. Because when it comes to the issue of heter mitzaref le'isr, Nazir is not the only source. You also have a source from carbon chatos, and there's a principle that if you have something that's written by two separate halachas, like over here, where heter mitzaref le'isr is found both by Nazir and by carbon chatos, that's called beis ksuven haboin ke'echad, two psukim that teach the same thing. And anytime you have a situation of two psukim that say the same thing, the reason why it's said twice is to say that the halacha only applies over here and no one else. Ein malamdin, it can't teach to other cases. Therefore, the halacha applies only to Nazir and Chatos and nowhere else. And the Gemara says, Nazir hadamr. Nazir is that which we've been speaking about the entire time. As we said, the pasuk of Mishras, the idea of heter mitzdaref le'isr. Chatos mahi, where do we see this halacha? Where is it found by carbon chatos? Titania, as we learned in a brayso, kol asher yiga b'v'sara yiktosh. It says anything that touches the meat is going to be holy. Yachol afilo shelo bala. I might think that means if it touches even without absorbing any taste. Talmud lomer b'v'sara at sheyivla b'v'sara. The pasuk says b'v'sara. It means that the taste gets absorbed in the meat, And what does it mean, yikdash, it becomes holy? Lios kamo, what it means is if something touches and absorbs the taste from the carbon chata, so it becomes like it. Shem psula hi yifsal, that if it's puzzle, so if it's disqualified, the other item becomes disqualified. V'im ksheira tochel kechomer sheba, and if it's kosher, if it's not disqualified, still that item has to be eaten according to all the stringencies of the carbon chatas. And as Tosfos points out over here, the assumption is we're talking about a situation of heter mitzdaref le'isr. Tosfos over here says, he talks about, again, let's say it's a chatas and a shlamim, so you have to follow the chumras of each. Hare goli rachmana b'chatas. The Torah is telling us by carbon chatas to heter mitzdaref le'isr. We're talking about a situation where the heter actually is joining with the isr. To milo askinan, because aren't we dealing with a case? To nivla chatzi zayis shuman, b'so chatzi zayis the shlamim, that a half a zayis of the oil or the fat, it gets absorbed into a half a zayis of the shlamim, and they're being mitzdaref, they're joining together to create the shear. That must be what we're talking about. Can't be tam ke'ikr, because that we're already learning out, as we said above, from giyulei of the kochavim, from the kashering of the vessels of non-Jews, of idol worshippers. And so therefore this must be teaching as well the idea of heter mitzdaref l'isr, and again that means it's shnei ksuvin haboin ke'echad. And the Gemara continues, V'Rabbanan, and what do the Rabbanan respond to Rabbi Akiva? They're learning Tam Ke'ikr from the case of Nazir. Why don't they say as well that it should be Shnei Ksuvim Haboin Ke'echad? And the Gemara says, no, it's Tzrichi, because both Psukim would be needed. If you have a reason to write it by both cases, so that no longer is treated like Shnei Ksuvim Haboin Ke'echad, and you are able to derive the halacha. Both cases are needed. The cause of Rachmana Gabe Chatas, because let's say the Torah only wrote the concept of Tam Ke'ikr, again working within the Rabbanan. Let's say it only wrote the concept by carbon Chatas. Havamina Nazir lo asiminai. I would think that it's true by Chatas, but you can't learn Nazir from there. Mishum de Nazir mikachim lo yalfina. You can't learn the case of Nazir from a case of Kachim, from a case of Karbanas. Because of Rachmana Gabe Nazir, and if the Torah only wrote it by Nazir, Havamina mi Nazir lo yalfina, and I would think you can't learn from Nazir, Mishum de Chamrei Suri, because that's a stringent prohibition. De afilu charz Nazir le, because even the seeds are prohibited. Hilkach lo asimine. Therefore, you won't learn one from the other. You need both psukim. It's not considered Shnei Ksuvin Haboin Ke'echad, and again you can derive Tam Ke'ikr from the case that is written by Nazir. But the Gemara continues, Rabbi Akiva Amar Lach, Rabbi Akiva will respond to you, Lamai Tzrichi, why do you really need both psukim? B'shlama, because of Rachmana Chatas, I understand if the Torah wrote it by Chatas, lo gamar Nazir, we know we can't learn Nazir from Chatas, to Chulin mikachim lo gamrin, and as we said, you can't learn Chulin from Kachim. Elalichtov Rachmana b'Nazir, but why not just write it by Nazir? Again, according to Rabbi Akiva, the pasuk by Nazir would be teaching Heter Mitzdaref L'Isr. But Teisi Chatas mina, and you could have learned Chatas from there. To Kol Yisron Shabbat Torah Kagamri mi Nazir, because we've already said that you can learn all prohibitions in the Torah from Nazir. In other words, we said that when it comes to Tam Ke'ikr, for example, if you're learning by Nazir that it means that the pasuk means Tam Ke'ikr, you can learn Tam Ke'ikr everywhere in the Torah. So why not learn Chatas from Nazir? But yet the Torah felt that the halacha needed to be written by Chatas as well. So therefore, Rabbi Akiva says, when it comes to Heter Mitzdaref L'Isr, it really is Shnei Ksuvin Haboin Ke'echad, Ve'ein Malam, then you're not able to learn from those cases. And the Gemara continues, V'Rabbanan Amrilach, and the Rabbanan will respond to Chatos leheter mitzaref le'isr. By carbon Chatos, the pasuk that's written there is talking about heter mitzaref le'isr. The Chulin mikachim lo gamrinim, but that's just a halacha by Kachim. You can't learn Chulin from Kachim. Umishras, and the pasuk of Mishras by Nazir, that's, as we said within the Rabbanan, Lite in Tam Ke'ikr, that teaches the halacha of Tam Ke'ikr. And Mikana Tadon, l'chol Yisurin Shabbat Torah. From there you learn by all Yisurin in the Torah, there's a concept of Tam Ke'ikr. Rabbi Akiva, but Rabbi Akiva, he says no, Tarvayu leheter mitzdaref le'isr. Both of the cases are actually talking about heter mitzdaref le'isr. V'havalu shnei ksuvin haboin ke'echad, and therefore, according to Rabbi Akiva, as we said, it's shnei ksuvin haboin ke'echad. V'chol shnei ksuvin haboin ke'echad ein malamdin. And when you have shnei ksuvin haboin ke'echad, you cannot learn to other cases, and that is the understanding of the machlokas between Rabbi Akiva and the Rabbanan. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Rav Ashi le Rav Kahana. Rav Ashi said to Rav Kahana, Elohad Tanya, but that which we learned in the following brisa, the pasuk says, Mikol asher yosim migefen hayayin, it says anything that comes from the vine, Limed al isurei nazir shein mitzdarfen zem zeh. That teaches us when it comes to the different prohibitions of Nazir, they can actually join together with one another to create the shear. Let's say a person has the seeds and the skins, they can mitzdaref one to the other. So the question is, Rabbi Akiva, according to Rabbi Akiva, Hashti yesh lomer heter mitzdaref l'isr, if now we're already saying that even heter can join together with that which is prohibited, so isr l'isr miboy, do we even need a pasuk to teach us that the prohibited items can join together? Of course the prohibited items can join together if heter is mitzdaref l'isr. And so the Gemara says, Amar Lei said to him, Heter le'isr b'vas achas. When it comes to Heter and Isr, that they join together if it's at the same moment. But Isr le'isr, but let's say it's Isr joining together with other Isr, afilu b'zeh achar zeh. That would be even if it's consumed one after the other, even if it's not b'vas achas, Isr and Isr can combine. And the Gemara says, Rabbi Shimon, what about according to the Shita of Rabbi Shimon? And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Ches Amud Aleph.